Go ahead, Andreas.
Right? I mean, what's he doing? Where's he been?
He he's out losing at a Magic tournament again, probably. So
You think he'd just learn from the experience and that it's not worth it to do, but whatever.
it depends. I mean, it can be fun, and if they're giving you promo cards and stuff, that's worth the price of admission. So, but yeah, like I didn't stick with tournaments for games that I really, really enjoyed just because I didn't like the people that, you know, tended to compete
Mhm.
in those. Like I've even been to quote unquote friendly tournaments and, had people that I was like, they either had, I mean, in some cases, these are the guys that are reading the errata as it comes out. And then in other cases, I'm like, I'm pretty sure you're cheating that, or at least we have wildly different interpretations of how that rule works, and it just wasn't worth the drama, in a way. So, but, but yeah, so I've done not magic, but like miniature tournaments and stuff like that,
Mm.
like Star Wars minis, and I think the last one that I did was like a Star Trek one, which I only just kind of reacquainted with the fact that I even had any of that stuff. But you had ships, and like they were doing like a DS9 expansion. This was eons ago in comparison,
So
but
you
yeah.
ships on a table?
hmm
Okay.
So like you're familiar with 40K, I imagine, right? At least
Sure.
passingly, and
Passingly.
they put miniatures on a table.
Mhm.
What if
I'm just
instead of
like,
dudes and tanks, it was ships and fighters?
yeah,
You
but
know?
spaceships can move in 3 dimensions, not just 2?
Yeah, and on occasion, you'll have a game that tries to do that. So, yes, but usually the 2 dimensions is sufficient to simulate for the game, but maybe you'll have an ability that says, you took advantage of the 3rd dimension. There's a couple of, old-timey, like, World War I and World War II fighter games where they literally like, my dad had set up some things where it's like a triangle wheeled base with, like, a 2 or 3 foot long, like, dowel of some kind, and
Mm.
then you had, like, clothesline clips that your model would sit on with it, and that would dictate your altitude and whatever, and those games are insanely complicated and people don't play them, compared to like the two-dimensional simulations.
This is where a
Yeah.
video game is, in a way, superior of you can have a 3D space.
Sometimes, but a lot of those games have very limited Z dimensions anyway. So, and to, echo, hell, he was Captain Spock at the time, I think, but, tactics suggest two-dimensional thinking. So a lot of people pretty much are going to fly at you in the XY axis anyway, so, but because
Limited
they didn't
thinking.
train. Yeah, exactly. So, but, yeah, like Star Trek Online, I play that a lot, and I mostly play it for the ship combat, and there is some up, down, and whatever, but everything is presented to you on whatever plane you're on anyway for the most part, so it's like, the fact that there is a Z-axis is kind of like an afterthought, for
That's very
accuracy rather than a mechanic. It would be more fun if you had to worry about, the orientation of your ship and stuff like that, but,
I mean, yeah, I would
so
assume that having the Z-axis is a very important thing of space combat?
you'd think so, but yeah.
Okay.
The other thing too is like you also got to think, I mean, if we're going to knuckle down over accuracy, right? These ships are crewed by like minimum of dozens of people, right? And it's just you, doing the things. And so that's one thing that I muse about, Star Trek Online all the time. It's like basically like I'm the captain, but I'm also the bridge crew because like they're there, but I'm just triggering their abilities, right? As some kind of RPG, but it's like, but if the ship were, functioning as designed and intended, then I would have a tactical officer making independent targeting decisions and, shit like that. And, I would have a helmsman sending us through a corkscrew or something, whatever we need to do to chase the target and keep, the weapons pointed the right way, stuff like that. And you can do those too, but again, very complicated. So yeah, if you're into those things, like I don't know if it's still around. I gotta imagine, but Artemis, and I think there's a couple others that have tried it. I think you can do some similar things with some of the new ones, the Star Citizen and whatever the other one that's never
Eve?
going to come out, but made no the
Oh,
the one that made like hundreds of millions of dollars and is never going
oh,
to come
Star
out.
Citizen.
So
wasn't
Is
it?
it Star Citizen?
Is the one that's been, like, on a
What am I
GoFundMe for 20 years and made
Yeah.
$3 billion and it's still not at 1.0? Yeah, I think that's Star
Right,
Citizen.
right. Okay. Then what's the other one that I'm thinking of that's like Star Citizen but came out like 2 decades earlier? So, anyway, but the point is, like, they've got little Corvettes and shit that you can have, like, 5 of you working together and, and do whatever. So, or hell, I even did, No Man's Sky not too long ago for a little bit, and that one technically has a Z direction, but again, most of the planets, I feel like they're just it's a solar system, right? They're in a plane for the most part,
For sure.
so, but yeah. I think it's humans and, when we're playing, like, some people really like the simming and, those guys go play Flight Simulator and their whole living room is a cockpit. And then there's people that just want to like chill for 30 minutes and not spend 30 minutes getting suited up for their video game. And, like, obviously there's a big in between there, but yeah. So it's out there though, if you really wanted. So you and like there's dozens of us
Mhm.
around the world. So you link up with the guy in Germany who also plays this game, and maybe one guy in Denmark, and then okay. Anyway, the strain. Should we get on topic? I'm a podcaster, so you give me a topic, and I'm just gonna go until I run out of English. Which we've robbed from a lot of cultures, so there's a
Oh, yeah,
lot of words I could say.
tons. Right, okay, The Strain.
Season
Um,
4. Should we slightly recap it with the fact that Zach sucks because he nuked New York, and it
again?
turns out that was bad. Well, I'm talking about the first time.
I
So
know.
spoilers,
Uh,
and apparently that nuke really cheesed off the Russians, and presumably the Chinese and the Indians and the Israelis even got involved. This is the show. Like,
mhm.
nobody could tell what happened, but there was a World War III for some reason. And
A
luckily
nuclear
for
World War III.
humanity, yeah, luckily for humanity, it seemed to be a limited exchange because everybody's generally having a bad time, but it's the only nuke that hit New York was the one that the master had set off, more or less, right? So,
Yeah, I mean, granted, that
you
was
know,
still 2 nukes in the last season. There
true,
was the one underground that killed the ancients, and the one
right.
that wiped out the
Which
city, and,
that
like
one didn't make everybody mad for some reason. So let's not worry about the fact that, the United States and several other countries have the technology to tell when you've got an underground nuclear test going, and stuff like that. That one didn't irritate everybody, but you fucking blew up the Statue of Liberty, you shitheads, and now somebody's going to die.
yeah.
But there's heavy implications that, like, the United States did not return fire, or at least did not return fire in a coordinated way, because we run across, a captain who was stationed at a missile base who was like, we
Mhm.
didn't shoot because we never got the order to shoot. So whatever everybody else did, we were good.
But
So
them in that silo in
yeah.
Pennsylvania, I mean,
Well, yeah, but I mean,
we have, like, nuclear submarines and shit, right? Like, we have nukes running around.
there's
There are
yeah, there's a
many other
there's a
nukes.
lot of there's a system. There's a whole thing, and it's designed presumably to survive a nuclear war. So, I mean, to me it implies the fact that the order just never came, right?
Mhm.
There may have been some commanders that assumed they were cut off from command and, launched independently if there's contingencies for that. But, the order never came from the White House, or the Joint Chiefs or whatever to trigger, which, I mean, it has to come from the president, right? Theoretically, anyway. Did some light reading. I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I'm pretty sure like it has to come from the president. There is no, you know, there's no in between. There's no like, oh, well, the president was killed. Like, you got to do the line of succession thing, whatever. So, but the order never came down. And it becomes kind of a plot point, which is why we're focusing on it for like the
Mm.
first half of the season, because they're in Pennsylvania for reasons, and they just happened, well, to find a nuke, because they were like, well, it
Mhm.
works so well on the ancients, we should get one for the master. And obviously, a nuke sounds like the face of God. Why didn't we put that together in the first place? Because
'Cause how
that's
the
what
fuck
we
did
got
the
out of
ancient
the
Egyptians
lumen.
have a
Exactly. I
pencil?
know. I was like, there's all this stuff about the prophecy, which I did enjoy that they were called out. I want to say it was Icorst or somebody like that, where they were like the whole what is it? I want to say occlusion or occultation, the
Mhm. Yeah.
blocking out of the sun, which World War III, the nuclear war, effectively did for the master, right? That was prophesied, and presumably that had also happened in ancient Egypt as well.
Mhm.
But like Icorst, if it was him, laid that straight at the human's feet, or maybe it was Quinlan, but it was like this couldn't have happened without
Mm.
your help. so
No,
so yeah, like
Quinlan said it of, like, I don't remember what the hell Fett was talking about with other someone else of, like, vampires are bad and something humans are better, yeah, but the humans blocked out the sun. The humans have the capability to ruin the planet with nukes.
that's
He made
true.
that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah,
Um,
he did definitely did talk about the whole, like, you guys were pointing loaded guns at each other type of thing, you know?
mhm.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
but they never explained, like, okay, if you need a nuke, how the hell did the ancient Egyptians have a nuke? They don't even have a
Because something else
volcano
happened.
nearby to
Yeah,
just drop people into, that's not like,
right.
mm, they didn't
It was us. We were talking about the flood myths, right? You know, so
oh, yeah,
I
Dresden,
would
yeah,
go yeah, I would but I would harken back to that conversation in the sense that it's like, maybe for the Egyptians, it was enough that you blocked out, like, the Nile River Valley, you know? And that's significantly easier than, you know, than taking out, like, Europe, you know, the whole thing or something, you know, it's like maybe tons of oily black smoke, you know, could do it for a day or something like that. You can have yourself a manufactured, uh, you know, eclipse is the word that I'm looking
mhm,
for. You know, stuff like that. But yeah, it's like there's no way, right? There's no way it lasted more than a very short time, you know, without some crazy atmospheric effects. If you wanted in Salt Lake City, you could probably do it without too much fuss. That's probably part of what I'm thinking. But, like, you know, on the plateau in Colorado, probably harder. New York,
mhm.
I don't know. Like, probably harder, I would imagine, because any pollution that's not being, like, restored and renewed is gonna drift off out into the ocean, presumably,
Yeah.
you know, stuff like that. So yeah, it for their purposes for this show and whatever, it had to be nuclear fallout, you know,
I
nuclear
mean,
winter. So
it's not a bad plot device. I just
sure.
feel like the world building kinda, like, you rose a very important question there, and you did not answer it.
Hmm.
But
With the Egyptian stuff, you mean?
yes, yes.
Yeah.
It just, like, how
It's possible the books get more into it because I fell down a little bit of a lore rabbit hole while I was reading for the show as well, or maybe it was in the trivia, where it was like they talked about like the origin of the Strigoi in this world anyway, and all of that stuff.
mhm.
So it's possible it's dealt with better in the books, but yeah, for the show's purposes, it was like, well, they did it in Egypt, and we seem to be paralleling that, and you make some reference to the plagues and all of this stuff, but you know, yeah.
The season didn't need to be 10 episodes long.
I feel like there was less filler in this one than other seasons, though.
There was
Like, I feel
still
like season 1 did okay, you know, in hindsight, and then season 4 did okay, you know?
I feel like
So,
season 4 was the worst season because, like, there was so much that just didn't feel important.
season 3 was worse in my opinion, but I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah, some of that might be, you know, just memory. I can't remember a ton of season 2, but, like, I'd have to go
Everyone
through
had
all
a
the stuff, but
girlfriend
I
and they
mean,
were
like
all boring.
sure, right. Yeah, remember when we all had girlfriends. Yeah, that was like 9 months ago, which that felt like a really odd, you know, time frame to keep harping on. Like, why
Mhm.
9 months? You know, you didn't wanna do
Yeah.
10 months, which would keep me from thinking, like, which of all of these girlfriends is pregnant, you know, or whatever.
Right, no, even with
Um,
the 9 months, it's just kind of like, well, that's how long it takes to make a baby, and then, "Oh,
right.
where's Dutch?" "In a
Yeah,
baby
exactly.
factory."
Right. Literally, mind you, you know?
Yeah, and so
Mm,
that's I mean, maybe they were doing that intentionally just to, like, prime you for it, but
sure.
I felt like Dutch's story was the most interesting in all of this because all the rest of them were just running around, or and Satrakian was sidelined for a while too, and
for most of it, yeah.
yeah,
Well,
but, like
I mean, it makes sense why Satrakian was sidelined, right? At
sure.
least, from what happens in the story. And I did enjoy the banter between Fett and Quinlan because it's like, let's take two of the best parts of the show
Yes.
and smash them together and send them on an errand that, i- by itself is kind of ridiculous because it's like the boys will be boys. How to stop the vampire apocalypse? And like, wouldn't you know it? Quinlan's like, hey man, I almost got nuked. Let's get one of those. It's like,
He
for all
was
my
nuked
bitching about how
twice.
terrible humans are, right? Yeah, he's
Yeah.
like, there's a bigger gun. I don't have to use a Tech 9. Like, oh my God, I should go get me one of thems. And so that was fun. But then, like, 3 episodes worth of like his quippiness of like, once again, Fett falls into manure and comes out smelling of roses. It's like, so at least the authors are recognizing that this character has like all of the plot armor.
Yeah,
That Fett is like
I'm still okay with
supernaturally
that,
charmed. Sure,
and that's
yeah.
still
I mean,
fine.
because he's also one of the more competent characters, right? And we're talking about a guy who basically was like a director at the CDC and a guy who's hunted vampires for like 60 years, right? And Fed is still like insanely competent, compared to that. Not everything is a stick of dynamite like it was in season 2.
That is
So,
true.
but
Like, the banter between Fett and Quinlan, absolutely gold. Like,
yes.
I can't quit. Mama didn't raise a quitter. I'm a complainer though, so I'm gonna complain about it, but I'm not gonna quit.
I usually just go with the whole complaining is a sacred right, and that way, if you know, you know. But yeah,
Yeah,
so
it's just the banter between them is great, and, like, even when they got to the missile silo and Quinlan gets hurt, and, like, he broke his leg, and he
yeah,
takes a femur-handled sword and straps that to his broken femur to be able to
right.
hobble around. It's like, okay, that's great. It's just, like, their whole quest just felt like a side quest,
It was a side quest, but it was also
and
the main quest.
then Fett gets
So
another fucking girlfriend, and she's okay,
yeah,
but
I
it's
couldn't. Yeah, I wasn't ever 100% sure if she was still the captain or not, or if that chick had died, or what had happened to
oh, no,
her.
not the captain. No,
Um,
no, it's another
yeah,
one.
yeah,
He's a
yeah,
romantic, fine, it's
and
fine as a
then
character, just like sh
ambiguous at the end if she's alive or not, because I
yeah.
gotta imagine Icor's took that personally and killed her. So, you know,
Yeah,
but
but,
yeah,
I mean, they give you the idea she's just gonna go off to Montana and be happy, and
right.
okay, okay.
And just a quick aside, men, if you're looking for a woman, find a woman who will give you fire support. Like seriously. Like if you're flying away with a nuclear weapon on a small plane, then find a woman who will lay down suppressing fire. That's
Mhm.
all. So,
I mean, yeah, she knows how to ride a motorcycle, she knows how to use a sniper rifle, she can convince people to do suicide missions because they think
you
that
can
there's
have
a whole
all the
lot of
silver
silver.
in the back of that truck. Yeah, how much silver is there? Well, you didn't ask, did you?
Yeah, she was, like, collecting blood from everyone to be able to feed Quinlan. I mean, like, she
Right.
was fine,
Yeah,
but that's all she was, and so just, like, she's just kind of patching up some kind of hole in their group dynamic of the side quest area,
sure.
therefore, she didn't feel vital. I mean, the same thing with what F hooks up with a chick named Alex, and they're
Mhm.
blowing up buses and trying to be terrorists, and like, okay, but you're also killing people because you don't know what you're doing. It
I
was
do like the fact that he just came in sideways with the criticism. They're like, "Okay, lead us." And it's like, "What did you think was gonna happen?" Right? Like, it's a pretty standard human trait of like, if you're gonna criticize me, you're gonna tell me what I should improve on or something like that. And then she just kind of like let go of the wheel and is like, here's the leader of the resistance now. And he's like, God damn it, no, I want to be a simple country doctor. Come on. That's why I
I
fled
just
New
need
York
to be a
City.
depressed alcoholic because my life is shit and my kid's a monster.
But he cleaned up too. He stopped drinking again.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
It's
you
fair,
know,
but it yes, he needed to be the broken, depressed person, and now he has to lead people, and it's like everybody has to have like, oh, there's a now they have the fight in them again, and that's fine as protagonists.
Sure.
Sometimes it just feels still more like a crutch, whatever. And again, Alex was she was competent, she was fine, and, like, he says, like,
Yeah.
"Something or other with the blood, we need to get them and, like, rat poison." She's like, "Okay, let's do that." Like,
Right.
not fighting him whatsoever. I'm like, "That's a great
Right.
idea, let's go do it." And she wasn't upset when
So
he had to
again,
kill her brother and just, like
find yourself a woman who supports you in mass poisoning the vampires, you know? So
yeah,
and I mean, their plan was decently effective for that, but it was kind of funny where it was like, we killed like thousands of them, and you know, like I mean, I guess they didn't address it in the show, but it's like they killed thousands of them. It's repeatable. There was no collateral damage. All of this stuff. These are all good things, but it's also like pales against the swarm, my dude. You know, it's
yeah,
like New York City alone had how many millions of people, you know, and
yeah,
how many of them are turned is like so 1,000, 10,000. You're that's statistically untenable, you know. And it was surprising to me that they didn't really address that, but I felt like you could almost see that in F's face when he's describing it to like Satrakian and being like, I did a good job. Can I get a pat on the head? And Satrakian's like, that's nice. Did you kill the master? You know, like, because that's what it's going to take, you know? So, um,
yeah, and everyone was
because,
fine. Just
yeah, I
like all of
guess
the
I was gonna pivot to, I apologize for interrupting, but, like, to me, the more egregious thing really was when they all met back up, right? Like, in 1 or 2 episodes, they all come back together
yeah,
from their various parts unknown, and it's like, Satrakian was basically in a medical coma that Eichhorst brought him out of because he's a petty bitch, and then Dutch magically managed to escape and save Satrakian, and then they found this crypt to hide in, and then Gus decides, you know, like
he's a
he's
paladin.
had enough. Yeah, right. Yeah, he's had enough of like slumming it out with the gangsters and whatever, so he's gonna actually throw in. And I mean, Satrakian pushed him, but he was still on that trajectory when they met up with Satrakian, so Satrakian could push him. And then 5 minutes later, you know, Quinlan and Fett show up with, you know, Captain Roman, I think was his name, right?
Mhm.
And it's like, and we got a nuke, and then, you know, from parts unknown, we've got Alex and well, I mean, they were in Philadelphia too, but like we've got F and Alex, and it's like, Jesus, we got like an army, we're getting a band back together, you know,
And then, like, half
for
of them
5 minutes. Yeah, exactly.
It's
So
it's fine, it's fine. It's a
because
high
we've got
casualty show.
well, and it's the final season, right? You know, so
Yeah,
you're bound to get to lose some of that. But it's like, so we got Gus's cousin, which is bad because
red
I don't
shirt
remember
all
his
over him.
name. Exactly. And then we've got Alex, who at least has a name and a face, but we've
Yeah,
known her for 5 minutes, and F hasn't banged her yet. But
which
tragically,
would I
you
mean,
know,
so maybe he learned from his past mistakes.
yeah,
Maybe he was trying
character
not to get
growth,
her killed. Didn't help.
or he's going to learn the wrong lesson, which was, I mean, I might as well. They're going to die anyway, so you know.
Well,
Um, you know, and then we've got Dutch and Satrakian, which of course are like, honestly, Dutch to me is inexplicably a main character sometimes. Like she's always competent, she's always helpful, but like if you had told me in the, you know, in the first 5 minutes of like
mhm.
seeing her as a character that she's going to be one of the main, you know, Scoobies or whatever. Like there were so many places where I was like, wait, is this where she's the one that slept with F and lived, right?
That is
She's the
true.
one that lived.
Combo breaker.
Yeah, she's got the lightning bolt, so
Well, it's because
but,
that she had Fett first and, like, that, like, helped her because Fett has plot armor, he can give it to
because
others.
the plot armor. No. Oh,
I mean,
no.
Fett's girlfriends didn't die. Fett's girlfriends just went away.
No, yeah, I can't externalize what is in my head right now, so, um, yeah, and then Quinlan and stuff, which, like, none of these guys are extras, but yeah, like,
Why the
we
fuck did
whittle it back
Quinlan have
down
to
to,
have a
like,
girlfriend too? I mean, like, it uh,
well,
it
be
didn't
so
matter.
as a guy, what you don't understand is that every single woman who ever touched Quinlan and didn't call him a monster was a girlfriend, whether they realized it or not. Like, really, that's Quinlan's life, right? I wouldn't say, I don't know, she wasn't particularly a girlfriend, but it's like, you know, she's unwed for some reason I don't think is addressed. She's got a kid. Her brother, who was her caretaker, got syphilis went crazy and then died. And
Mhm.
Quinlan is the only one not like worrying about the social graces that she would have to deal with, and vice versa, right? And treated her daughter like a human being. And so, like, I think in a weird way, it was like, P.S. Quinlan was a human being once too. Quinlan used to care, and he's starting to care about Fett and maybe Dutch by proxy or something like that. But there's a reason why he's cold, and it's a very similar story to the Satrakians as well, in my opinion, right? Where it's like, in this line of work, if you make an attachment, the master is going to exploit that and kill them, and you're going to have a bad time, you know, and because the master's a dick and a bad guy, you know.
I mean,
But
all of that is fine. They didn't need to make filler for it because that's still what the girlfriend was
sure.
just set dressing filler, and you just
Yeah.
don't they don't need to rehash it. Like, if they had cut this down to, like, 6 episodes of a season instead of 10, I think it would have been stronger.
Well, sure.
I mean, there was a whole crazy lady cult that had kidnapped Fett, and it's just done in
For,
15
like,
minutes.
15 minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it just
exactly. Literally, it was almost there for a joke of, like, Quinlan can smell my perfume or something like that, it was
yeah.
like,
It was
"Okay,
Quinlan
cool,"
coming to save the day,
you
which was
know?
fine, and they had good banter, and that's
Yeah,
fine. It was just like,
and it might have been better if that had cropped up in the last 2 or 3 episodes where it's like, "We got separated, but Quinlan knows where I am because I still smell pretty," so, yeah.
it just the pacing felt kind of, like, all over the place because of all of this stuff, and then just it was so
Yeah.
obvious that the first 5 episodes are, like, waiting for whatever big thing that's going to happen of when all the gang gets back together, kind of, "Oh, now it's important
Eh.
because,
You gotta show
plot
where
lines."
everybody is, right? Because it's like, the first episode, we find Fett and Quinlan and, they're gonna get a nuke. That's mostly what happens, but, like, everybody gets a little bit. F is running around playing the clinic doctor, and I think he helps the family that it's like she's got scurvy, take some vitamin C, thanks for the
Yeah.
liquor, and which actually reminds me, that was season 4, right? So, like, somewhere between that moment and never addressed on the show until Alex wants him to get drunk. And now all of a sudden he's like, I can't. I
I
didn't
mean,
even I didn't even realize that was all the same season. So
yeah,
that's
so, like,
funny.
it
But
could just be using the liquor to trade, but he
yeah,
was
or
specifically doing
disinfected,
y I think it was
you
just
know.
like a fancy wine or something though, like, it wasn't the kind
Gotcha.
of liquor that you would want to use for granted, they may not have a whole lot of choices, it's whatever.
Right. Sure. Yeah. And then episode 2, I think, is where we focused on like Dutch and
Yeah, going
so
by the name
maybe.
Miranda.
Yeah, so in episode 1, like, you see them get taken, which is really bad, and, like, luckily, you kinda get, like, a little bit of growing like, Satrakian even about it, I think, where it's, like, literally, Satrakian wound up back in a concentration camp, but
Mhm,
because of their attempts to, like, strip out humanity and, just move them around like chattel, they didn't even realize that they'd captured Satrakian and Dutch because they're just a machine grinding up people literally for
mhm.
blood. So we finally get to see what the thing they've been building for like 2 seasons, for processing the humans and whatever, and uh, to address that for a moment, like, one of the things that, pissed me off, which, like, what's his name? What was the Patsy's name? Desai?
Yeah,
Um, yeah. So, like, and he's like, "Oh, it wasn't my machine," and blah, blah, blah. I was like, "Yeah, it fucking was. It was very much your project, my dude." So, like, obviously, he was a weasel all the way through at
oh
the
yeah,
end
no,
and everything, and,
unrelenting
you
snake
know
every single
yeah,
moment.
yeah.
Yeah,
So anyway, so yeah, we see those 2 got grabbed, and then, the baby factory stuff, and just be like, "Ah, yes, everybody's going upstate to a farm.
mhm.
P.S. That's a lie, and the upstate farm is also a lie." There are people at the upstate farm,
I
but
mean, you're
that's
going
also
to
a
a
lie,
farm, you just don't
and
realize that you're the chattel.
yeah, right. Yeah,
And
and
it's a little
then
upstate as in it's like 100 feet north.
yeah, right. Yeah, and then, I don't know, it's like 3 or 4 when Icorst gets after Desai about like, this is a baby factory. We're not trying to make happy and healthy babies. We just want babies. And so, doing premature C-sections is okay because we're the bad guys,
Yeah.
because for some reason B plus blood tastes the most delicious and babies taste the most delicious. So we're gonna breed some B plus babies, which are delicious, doubly delicious, So that also seemed odd and otherwise unexplained.
I mean, I'll just accept it. I don't know what blood tastes like in terms of a vampire's experience of it. It's like, okay, they never seem to be so discerning except for Icorst alone.
That's true.
And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, he was really interested in Dutch, and he was doing all sorts of weird shit to her.
Well,
So like, oh,
she's
okay,
she's a blonde girl named Dutch. I mean, that's as German as it gets for him.
that's true.
So,
But
yeah.
apparently she was also B plus, and that's why he wanted to make a whole meal out of it. But uh, it's just none of the other Strigoi seem to give a shit about what anyone tastes like.
True. And he always did seem to imply that it was for the master, but we never actually saw it come down the other way where the master's like, "Oh, yes, a bottle of 2016 baby. Delicious. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then
Your
interspersed
thoughts?
with all of this creepiness, you get to watch Zach do the creepy incel thing too.
I
Oh, kids
I
so
had forgotten
annoying.
about that. So, like, literally the worst. Like, seriously, you effed that up. So,
Oh, yeah.
you know. Yeah. Yeah, so the master, of course, does what the master gonna do. So twofold here. He has basically genetic memory of every vampire he's ever taken, which means that he's able to call up all of mom's memories and personality and whatever, and then he's able to hypnotize Zach to the fact, right? So vampires, bad guys, we get it. And then as part of this thing, he basically gives Zach a servant girl, which I'm pretty sure the understanding there is that Zach's gonna you know he's gonna learn some things, and then that's gonna help him be more ready to be the master, and like the casual use and cruelty probably was the point at some point, but again. One girl has looked at this boy and touched his arm, and therefore he is in love, and they're going to have babies together now. So, you know,
I mean, it sounds like that's accurate to a teenage boy.
right?
And so setting him up for such kind of failure, that makes sense for the master. I mean, I don't understand why he cares. Like, he seems to be trying to train him of like, "Oh, you're gonna go kill a tiger
Right.
and get pats on the head for that." I don't why do you care?
Right. Because he wants to encourage the cruelty and strength, right? Like if you
But
again, it's an inference rather than outright said,
he
right?
kinda
And
said
really
something
the
like that to Icorus. It's just like, if he's planning to do is make Zach a better vessel to
right.
transfer into, and so it's a transfer of choice rather than transfer of necessity, like what happened with Palmer.
But also why does that matter? Because that's never
Mm.
really brought up.
Right, like, why
Yeah.
okay, if you want him to be, like, a very fit adult, send him to boot camp. You don't need him to,
Exactly. Yeah.
like, you don't give a
Where's all
shit
the
about his
push-ups
emotions.
and pull-ups and shit that he's doing? Yeah, exactly.
He's just
Which even
playing.
still, like, there's no implication that any of that, whether it's personality or anything, would have mattered. The only implication, so there's two things that I can think of that we see where it's like, however they were before they were turned or during the turning matters. One is the mongrels, because apparently if you feed on the worm for 2 months before you're unleashed or whatever, and the loam, which is the soil, the master soil for some reason is more powerful, those become a match for Quinlan, because Quinlan seemed to have a slightly tougher time dispatching these goons than regular goons, right? They were almost as match. And then the other one is that the when we took out the Navy SEALs, that the skills translated, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
so, so it's like again, none of those are improved by keeping an incel, using your parlance, around and telling him to go figure out how babies are made with a girl or whatever, or just have fun or get everything that you want and be a spoiled, petulant child. Like none of this is necessary, right? There's no implication, at least in the show, that, him having forcibly taken Palmer was anything other than when he took, uh, what was his name? Starts with a B. It's not Balthazar, but that's the word that's coming to mind. But Bolivar, right?
Mm,
Bolivar was the,
yeah, yeah, the
yeah.
singer.
And there's no implication that's better or worse than when he took the giant. And really, the giant seemed to work for him for literally hundreds of years until his body got destroyed by the sunlight,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's
I
just
so the master's motivations to Zach
on it.
don't really make sense, right? I think the most
Yeah,
thing that makes sense out of it is for you to understand Zach's journey
sure.
to the different decisions that he makes, and he makes a lot of bad ones,
Right.
and
Yeah, I think it just occurred to me too, like the main thing that comes down to is like the master was going to use him against Ephraim. That for whatever reason, the master locked in on Ephraim as being Satrakian's, successor, which is partially true, but completely overlooked Fett, which is part of Fett's plot armor,
yeah,
you know. So
it's just insulting. Fett is the better inheritor of Satrakian's legacy.
and he winds up with the sword and lives. So,
Mhm.
that bears out, you know.
And he was right. He was like, "We cannot trust Ephraim. We should take his devicey thingy, and then we should leave him here because we can't trust him." And he was fucking right the whole time.
Well, I mean, Ephraim's betrayal was more about the book, right? And the nuke thing was a happy accident, like his device and everything worked out fine, but
Yeah, no, it's
you
just
know,
like you can't trust him. So, like, he's gonna do bad things. The whole family just does stupid shit.
right. I was just thinking of another movie that I watched yesterday that was like
Mm.
half of the plot points and half of the terrible things that happen is because this guy makes some of the worst decisions that I've ever seen in a movie.
Oh, what
And then
movie?
is Cargo.
Never heard it.
So oh, okay. So Cargo's fun because at the waning end of the zombie hype, right? These guys put out a short movie where the punchline of it more or less is that this zombie is rigged up, has himself rigged up with a, like carrot on a stick, obviously not, it's probably entrails or whatever, and he's got a baby in a harness and a sign around his neck that says "Save her," or something like that. I don't remember how much is in the original short movie because it's probably been a decade since I've seen it. But that's the gut punch. Is like, Dad was so committed to saving his little girl that he rigged himself up on autopilot more or less to go that way and save his little toddler daughter, right? And so that's you as the audience slash the protagonist, whatever you want to say, find them that way. So then everybody got excited about, like, this is the early viral days of the internet, right? Where that sort of thing, is a huge deal. Today it's just like, oh, okay, what's viral today, right? At the
Mhm.
time it was much more special. And so a bunch of studios chased after them and started, wanted to make a full feature length film. So they got Martin Freeman to play the dad, and it basically starts out with wife and dad and baby are escaping, and they're doing an okay job with it. He clearly does not have a ton of zombie related skills, which is fine. A lot of people wouldn't, so that adds to the drama of it. But one of the things that they do is, like, they basically got a houseboat, they're sailing down a river, they're in Australia, and he raids another houseboat that has been beached somewhat for food, and then to keep his wife calm about the dangers of it, because like when he's over on the boat there's also a zombie, and the
Mhm.
zombie was somewhat lodged in the bathroom, but he was able to get the food and get out. And so she's like, oh my god, was it dangerous? And he's like, oh no, it was totally trivial, no problems whatsoever, so I'm gonna go take a nap.
Mm.
So it's like, you just told your wife how safe it was, there was no danger, and then you left her unattended. So she goes over to get more food and is promptly bitten by a zombie. And then, several other things happen. I'm trying to remember some of the other ones, but it's like by the time we get to the end of this, it's like Like they steal a car from somewhere and they're driving, and then there's a zombie in the middle of the road. So we do the whole squirrel thing and we crash. But he's repeatedly trying to stop his wife from, like there's multiple mechanisms in there that she's gonna opt out, right? Because it's the responsible thing to do. Well, he gets in a car crash, and 5 minutes ago we had established that blood loss makes you turn faster, and she gets put through the wash, Firefly style. And so she starts to bleed out, and then he passes out and then wakes up to the screaming baby and zombie mom pinned next to him. So he proceeds to go through the middle of the car next to zombie mom to get the daughter instead of get out of the fucking car or dispatch mom or any of 100 other more reasonable things. And then he gets bit. And it's just like, bro, like, has there been a good decision you've made this entire movie? And I felt like that was like the first 30 to 45 minutes of the movie was like he makes passable decisions at times, but then very detrimental, terrible decisions at times. And it was like you kind of need to be called out that like a lot of this just happened because you just made bad decisions, and just be like, look, I went over the boat, something was on there, I got food. Let's go together next time. Or let's get a weapon and deal with it. Or like, why lie to her? Like you don't want her to panic, fine, but it's the zombie fucking apocalypse. The panic's already there. Like that should be your default.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, pivot, but yeah, it was just like he is a joy to watch. Like it is a good movie and whatever, and it does logically expand, in the universe. And like some of the fun of the short movie was like it brought a new dimension to the zombie stuff beyond just like having fast zombies. And the movie even expands stuff more, where it's like it's kind of a bummer in a way that it didn't get enough traction to really start to be an IP or more of a story, because like there's some very uniqueness about the zombies and the world that they're dealing with, like the part of the world that they're in, that could have been explored more, and whatever. But for the main character, bless his heart, he's a dope and makes bad choices. That's why these bad things have happened. Like until the end, when a confluence of things come together and you kind of get the whole, I use bait to lure myself to the finish line type of thing, which that's a brilliant way to deal with it. But if you had just made better choices up to that point, would have never happened. So,
Yeah,
but
it's unreasonable to expect every protagonist to be perfect protagonists,
sure.
but there is a point where frustrating protagonists are a detriment to the enjoyment of the story.
Right. Yeah. And it's tough because it's like competence porn, very fun
Yeah.
to watch, right? I want to watch professionals. I want to watch professionals lose, because no matter what their book and process and their gear says, they're just outmatched, right? Not because they're idiots, not because
Yes.
they forgot their training, not because they're gun jammed, not because they tripped or had bad luck or anything like that. Like those things may be true to life, but I don't want to watch those things, generally speaking, right? And so like yeah, I don't want my main characters to know everything, but like the Strain did a pretty good job because everybody who was an expert in their field was an expert in their field. We've got
Yes.
literally somebody who went to medical school, but it focuses in epidemiology, right? If I'm
Mhm.
using the right word in the right way. And we've got Dutch, who was a hacker, but she's got hard knock stuff and she knows a lot about random technology. And if not, she'll get her hands dirty. And we've got Fett, who's the fucking world class rat catcher. And wouldn't you know it, vampires and rats got a lot in common, which really kind of just goes back to like Dracula type stuff anyway, right? Critters of the night and
Mhm.
all of that stuff. And Quinlan has 2,000 years of being a foot soldier and a gladiator and just fucking people up. And like, to get us on track, like loved 2 or 3 times, like Quinlan's like, don't make me get up. You will regret it. It's like, it's not even particularly a bother to me, but I will fucking kill you if I have to get out of
Yeah.
this car,
"Why did you kill him? He was already
Uh,
down." You're like, "You didn't need to do him." "'Cause I said I would."
right.
Because he kept shooting at
Exactly.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, if you make me get out of this car, I'm gonna be so mad. Like, yeah, and I mean, he does even kind of address it where it's like 2,000 years, like I've begun, like not have begun, but it's like I just don't value human life. You know, you guys are flickering flames, but you guys are the main cast and crew. So I've learned to respect you guys, but yeah, some
At least a Fett.
gatekeeper, you know. Yeah, right.
I mean,
So
what did
they
he
all but hugged at the
say?
end, you
Yeah,
know.
it was like, Quinlan said something of uh, something as a compliment to Fett, and he was like, "Was that a compliment that I heard?" I give him out once a year or once every 100 years or so.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was
It
great
wasn't that
too.
much of a compliment either. It was just like
Yeah.
now you can do a good job or something. That was very mild, but
Yeah. But you know, it showed also his surfacing sense of humor and stuff like that too, and that, like, even though he feels like he could probably do most of this without Fett, he does still begrudge him that he is stupidly competent, mostly because Fett has all the luck out of the crew, right? You know, like,
and
everybody
that
else is
luck
good at
never
their
feels
job, Fett's good
unearned.
at their job and lucky. Yeah, it does. Come
I
on.
don't
Like,
know.
the thing with the cult and whatever, like, that's a happy accident with the whole aftershave thing, I guess, theoretically. um but like, but the fact that he got kidnapped by the cult and just happened to be held prisoner next to a guy who
Okay, yeah, no,
worked at a missile
that was
base with an
convenient.
active nuclear weapon, that's fucking, that's plot armor, right? You know, so
Is
yeah.
that Fett's plot armor, or is it just the
Yes.
convenience of the storytelling of this season, of this whole show, of just, like, how
Yeah.
convenient I mean, even to the point, like, it struck me as, like, Satrakian has been hunting Strigoi for 60 something years, more than that, maybe 20, 70, 80 years. Why is he in New York in the beginning? Why did he emigrate to New York when he doesn't believe that the Strigoi are there? Why did he think that the Strigoi was going to be there? Like, why was he just there? He shouldn't have been.
Common, you know, he emigrated through Staten Island like
Oh,
literally millions of people have, and
right,
you know.
right, no, but if
But,
his
like, why did
purpose
he leave Europe in the first place
yes, if
if
his
he thinks the
purpose is to
master is
hunt
in Europe?
vampires,
Yeah,
why did he leave where he knew that the vampires were?
right. Yeah,
'Cause he was like, "Oh, it's happening." Like, maybe he had reason to expect that the master would make it to New York, but we never see that. You're just
right.
there.
Yeah.
It and there's a lot of
It
this, like,
does feel to weaken
except
the story when you've got these contrivances, right? You know?
yes.
So, when you can't really come up with a reason other than dumb luck, which, again, kind of going back to what kicked this little micro digression off, I feel like is like when the Scoobies got back together, including Gus, mind you, like, he's the biggest one almost, right? Because, like,
Yeah.
Gus is doing the thing with Cream, and, you know, they're gonna be, you know, lords of the underworld when society rebuilds itself and whatever, and then it's just like, you know, "Nah, we took out some cops, some dirty cops, and now we're sitting on top, and that means now it's time to go fight." And it's like,
Yeah. Well,
"Okay." You know, like, "Thank you, you're
there's a couple of
competent."
different things
It's
out of Gus. So, like, Gus was his purpose and his adventures with Cream was getting things to people who needed them, and Cream had some of the materials to be
and
able to
making
do
money.
that. Yeah, money, yeah,
Yeah.
it was just like so Gus had a purpose of, like, basically being the marketplace to be able to provide things to people. Cream wanted money, whatever, and Cream and his people were also patently stupid, which they showed of, "Oh, we're gonna go, like, frontal assault, knock down the front door of the corrupt cops," like, and then what? And then what about the
Yeah,
tripwire? What tripwire? Exactly, don't do that,
right.
because Gus is smarter. And so when Cream makes another stupid decision, you believe it. That was
Right.
an earned stupid decision, and he suffered for it.
Mm, okay. I do like the fact that he did try to smart himself out of it, but then again, so he wasn't incompetent when he went to go talk to the master. He was out of his depth, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so
Oh, yeah.
he shows up and he does the, you know, Return of the Jedi thing, and it's like, "Ah, yes, you think you're going to turn me because of the information, but I'm holding a thermal detonator." And he straight up pulls the pin on a grenade and whatever, and I'm thinking this is smart because he probably thinks that's going to hurt the master. Plan A. Plan B is blow yourself up. But he didn't get to plan B. He just thought that plan A was going to be enough. And that could be a understandable folly, right? Because I was thinking, like, whatever happens, you drop it and then you
Mhm.
win. You've got two outs, right? But it was kind of funny to see him just get, you know, clowned by the master because the master can move at supersonic speeds, grabs the grenade, and for extra flair breaks the fuse on it, pulls the fuse out of it, which you see spark harmlessly. And I was like, oh, that was neat. And then turns the guy. It's like
Yeah.
the master doesn't give a shit anymore. Like he's not trying to work with
Yeah.
patsies and proxies. He's on top. Like you missed your time. Like he barely tolerates Desai right now. So
And then very, very suddenly doesn't tolerate Desai at all, which is fine.
yeah, well, because he knew what Desai was the entire time.
I
And
no, he was just
he
useful,
had
and then he was no longer useful.
yeah, it was like he barely the master had barely ever had to deal with Desai. Ikorst was doing it. And so it was only when he had to deal with him directly, he's like, nah, this isn't fucking worth my time. I'm an immortal and this is not worth my time. So, you know.
I do want to call out one of the guys that Fett and girlfriend Charlotte were running around within the like after she had lied to them about how much silver was available,
Yeah.
and then they run off, and then Ikorst finds them. I
Yeah.
don't remember how, but he's like, "Good news to me, I'm taking your truck. Bad news for you, I only need one of you to drive it." And so the
Right.
one guy lives and is having to drive the truck. Why can't Ikorst drive a truck? Whatever.
He probably can because he does, right? He does drive the truck, but I think Ikorst is just like he's a priss, right? He's like, I am above this station, so I'm
It's
gonna
okay,
invite
yeah.
trouble, because I mean
Uh,
it goes back to the wine drinking and the fine dining. The master, you never see the master grandstand for stuff like that. He's just doing the job, you know.
okay.
It's
Yeah, no,
Ikorst is the
Ikorst is
one
the
living
priss.
the decadent lifestyle.
But that guy, he just
Yeah,
like, makes a moment where Ikorst is looking away, turns on the radio on the truck, which allows others to hear it. Like, that was
right.
smart, that was
Yeah.
competent, that was, like, not like, "Screw you guys, you pissed me off." It was like, "This guy's crazy and dangerous, and we're coming for
And
you."
self-sacrifice,
Yeah,
all good
yeah, all of
things.
it. So
Yeah.
it's like like, I love the competence of it and then of the show, but then the contrivances, I guess, just come on other places, and then F's family
Mhm.
has to fuck everything up. It
Sure.
and then other
Yeah.
people just have to be really stupid of like, well, the serving girl, really. It's like, I don't know if there's any girl
She
who
wasn't
wouldn't have understood what was expected of her at that point. Like, it's uncomfortable, it's creepy, like, that kid is very not good to be around.
well,
But when
sure.
he's
I
giving her things and she understands why he's upset, it's like, he has a pet Strigoi. He has the ability to run around the entire city with the Strigoi at his command, and you mouth off at him? I
as a dude, I'm just gonna interject and say this conversation's gross all the way down and,
Oh, yeah.
whatever, but so you're saying that she should have understood what was gonna happen because of the implication?
Yes.
So,
Yes, no, that implication was loud and clear.
yeah.
It's
I
that
mean,
she turned determinately plot armor stupid and realized she didn't have plot armor.
sure. I could see some of that. Like, yeah, I mean, mouthing off probably wasn't the best play. Like trying to drive the knife deeper was pretty stupid. But other than that, like nothing she did seemed particularly egregious to me. And obviously, she was playing him for supplies and he
Right.
was a dope for thinking anything other than that. Like sure,
Right.
there on one hand she doesn't have a boyfriend and then you're in like Flynn potentially, but on the other hand, like it's the apocalypse, my dude. Like she's going to do what she needs to do to get the things she wants or thinks she needs and whatever.
Yeah.
And she had a boyfriend, so bummer. Better luck next time, or be a
And
petulant child about it and have her
there
killed.
are
you
a
know
million other ways for her to have
so
handled it. I mean, what they needed out of
sure.
that moment was for Zach to be evil and to feel bad about it, and in order to
Does he
justify
though?
his I think this is the best as reason as I can make it for the ending. Is like,
Yeah, no,
he Zach walked away, he covered his ears, he didn't wanna hear it anymore, he felt bad,
right.
but he was also lashing out at her in a very deadly
But
way.
then he keeps her around too, right?
Yeah,
So,
kid's not stable, but
yeah, okay.
okay, yeah, then after the gang gets back together and somebody tells F that, his kid is looking for him. It was at that one
Right.
market on that one street. I don't know New
Right.
York, whatever. Um,
Gus's Market and Street because contrivances. So,
yeah,
you know,
it's just like that place where we used to go to or something, the place that has
right.
memories, whatever.
Great.
They find the kid and they're smart of like they lock him in a cell or in a room in this building
Yeah.
and they don't tell
I
him
loved
anything.
it. Like, even F is like, "I love my son, but he's a fuck up, and I'll be damned if I'm gonna be accused of
And
being a
he's been
traitor
with the
again."
master for
And
9 months. So
yeah,
why
and
now?
F does the other smart thing of like, "You can't trust me, and that's fine. What would you do?" You know, and so he defers to like Fett and Quinlan, especially where it's like, Quinlan sniffed me out when I was being a traitorous douche. So, you know, you guys tell me if you think this is gonna be okay. Like, I wanted to talk about this, especially with like our dwindling minutes here, because
Mhm.
like all of this was great because the only person, in my opinion, who's a dope here is Zach, right? Again, which is fine because he's a child, right? Like he may be 15, he may have been living the high life or whatever, but like the whole cut with the can, like for the audience, like dramatic irony, like the audience knew immediately that he's
Oh, yeah.
signaling the master. And I was like,
Yeah.
please don't be stupid with this. And so then they go in and F is like, how many
How
cans of
many
soda
pop
have you
cans
had
have
in
you
your
opened?
life?
I'm a bad
It's like, you've been,
father. How many
yeah,
junk food have you eaten?
yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's like, you've been having soda since you were 2 because I'm a bad father. So so how many times have you ever cut yourself? Have any of your friends ever cut yourself? Does your mom know that you cut yourself? Like, and he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, Dad. You know, like it's
Yeah.
just, yeah, he's like, we're burned. Let's get out of here. You know, and
Yes.
he locks his fucking kid in there. And I was like, that's cold, but yeah, chances are Zach's gonna get out because you know the Strigoi are gonna come get him and everything. But yeah, that was great, honestly, as far as that could have gone, you know. So,
Right. It's like,
and
so
then it cheeses off the master because it was like, you were supposed to
pre
only signal me when you had the bomb, you know,
yeah,
like
premature of like, "Well, but
you
they were keeping me in a
fuck
cell."
up.
It's like, "You wait longer, idiot." Yeah, because he's a
Yeah,
kid,
exactly.
because he doesn't
Yeah,
know what he's doing, yeah, they had Desai at that point and the kid, and so where is the master? He's at the top of the Empire State Building. Where else do you go? And what does it
right.
look like up there? It's like, they draw out basically the same sketch.
Yes.
Cool. We have
Also smart.
information. They
Yeah,
all yes, the Scoobies were trying to be as smart as possible. They kept them the Desai and the kid away from each other. They just were more relaxed around the kid and like blah blah blah, keeping him in a cell. But
right.
yeah, F realizing that he can't trust his son and like that this is bad. Son is bad guy. Basically disowning
Right.
him, walking away.
He nuked New York City and inadvertently triggered World War III, you know, like,
Yeah. Like, and even
and
after, like,
he
I mean,
and
just
he did it in a fit of rage, like, I failed as a father and this kid has failed humanity and we just got to own that, you know. So
he's killed more kids than Ebola. Yeah.
harsh but true. So
Yeah. So like so the doctor epidemiologist that's trying to save people, his own son was worse than that from any of the diseases that he had fought. And so they running around New York and they come up with a plan of like, okay, we have to bomb the master, and the master's not at Empire State Building because the master went to where Zach
'cause
was, and like,
obviously,
you you
which
bad spy.
just for a moment, again, Quinlan, fantastic. Like, Quinlan goes solo up to the Empire State Building because the nuke doesn't need to be up there. And so he's going to go make sure that the master is there because Quinlan's not going to make it anyway. So he's okay with the sacrifice play because, as far as he's concerned, even if he catches the master taking a shit and kills him clean, he's still going to die somehow. Right. So he's like, yeah, I'll go. And then there's the mongrels and there's all these other vampires. And I want to say it even like ends on a cliffhanger, quote unquote, that episode. And it's the next episode. And he's like, oh, wait, I remember. I carry Tech Nines. And he just guns them all down. And he's like, well, that was inconvenient. And like walks out of there because it's like all dramatic, like it's going to be this big fight. And then he's like,
Yeah,
wait a
no.
minute, I've got machine guns, you know? So,
Yeah, we have 2 episodes left, and we
um,
have an episode of setup, and so this must be condensed.
right.
They had radios and everything of like, uh like, bad news. We're like, "What kind of bad news?" It's like, "The bad news that he's not here and we don't know where he is."
Yeah.
But
We got good news and bad news. The good news is a lie, and the bad news is, of course, he's not here because he knows we're coming because Zach told him that he told us that we're coming,
yeah, yeah.
duh.
And so they get down to the
Water
water
tunnel
st
number
yeah,
4 or whatever. It's a big deal apparently. Like the trivia goes on about it, and it literally
okay.
has been like a 50 plus year mega engineering project. It's
And Fett was all
kind of
happy
wild.
about it. He
Yeah.
nerd.
Just when I thought we were done with the New York City history, So that was kind of a cute throwback of, yeah, Fett knows everything about New York because he knows where the gangsters hid their, bootleg, you know,
Where the
booze and
rats were
everything.
and
Yeah.
yes, Fett
So
saves the day, and they're gonna
again,
drag the Master down into the tunnels that are 800 feet deep, which therefore would protect New York from the 3rd nuke,
yes.
and Quinlan's gonna die fighting the Master, and so they're just like, "Okay, he fine," and then somebody has to set off the bomb. Fett will do it, and then we get
Fett
almost
will do it.
an entire episode of, like, Dutch trying to convince him, "Don't do it. Find another way. Some form of remote
Right.
detonator." We all know it won't work because 800 feet of rock is too deep. And, there's
Which whatever.
Dutch turns to
Yeah.
F and says, "Please convince him to live." And is like, "You must be really desperate to ask me that." "Oh, shit, you're really desperate."
Yeah. She pulls a Loki. You must be truly desperate to come to me for aid. So
Yes. And yeah, and then in the fighting, uh, Quinlan gets the Master into the elevator, and Zach gets run into it as well and knocked out, and F
right.
sees this, and so he gets in the other elevator and cuts the cord on there, so he just drops 800 feet without any kind of protection.
With no brakes.
I
Yes. So mind you that they go through the requisite planning and discussion about how the first explosion, the first charge is going to cut the cable, but because the elevators have emergency brakes, they need a second explosion to disable the brakes, which presumably even the Master and Quinlan are going to survive. And
Mhm,
also an unconscious child
mhm.
and an epidemiologist who knows better. I was like, "No, your kid's already dead. What are you doing?" Like there's
Yeah,
no situation that I would expect him to live, and even if he did, like 1% chance. Like let's leave room for stupid luck. Like maybe Quinlan and the Master sandwiched him in a protective layer of vampires and he lived or something. No, he's dead. There's nearly a 0% chance that he lived, but because the show, he does.
yeah, I mean,
And
okay,
so does
so,
F,
like,
which he should have also died, you
the kid
know.
had been being fed the white from the Master, maybe he has some super abilities, like, I could it's a stretch,
Fine,
but I'll give it. F
fine.
should not have lived from that,
Yeah.
but he
Yeah, like
lives
all the
long
vampires
enough.
get shot in the head, but it's
Yeah,
okay.
there's a
So,
nice big fight in the tunnels. F lives long enough. Quinlan gets
still gets his ass kicked,
yeah, Quinlan dies.
which I think
The
he's
Master is
mostly
injured,
throwing it, you know? Yeah.
maybe. I don't
Yeah, the
remember.
master does, like, stomp him out, doesn't he? You know?
Oh, yeah, yeah, no, just, like,
Yeah,
grinds him into paste, not good.
yeah.
But the Master's injured enough that he transfers into F, and F has got, like, s
Well,
30 seconds
we're we're
to,
skipping a step because for anybody who's read the books and everything, it's different in the books from what I
oh,
understand from the trivia. So the master goes to infest Zach, which was always the plan, and then F from, like, 900 feet away gets superhuman strength and speed and sprints and basically dives Zach out of the way. And so the
oh, interesting.
master just continues and, turns F the hard way as well. And then F does succumb, right? So towards the end, you know, he starts turning into the master. And for just a little bit of flavor, you've got Gus and Fett and Dutch's last stand upstairs where they're like trying to fight a horde of 10,000 vampires. And so you see the vampires just like chill because it's like, well, the master either died and we won, or he's switching a new host and we're sunk. And then they come back to life more or less, and it's like, ah, shit, it's the bad one.
Yeah.
And then the master F is like, why don't I just hug Zach right next to this nuclear bomb, which couldn't possibly be a bad idea.
Yeah, no one learned from that except for
Yeah,
maybe Zach.
right. Like, it's like, well, he's never set off a nuclear weapon in a rage before, because
Yeah.
for whatever reason he realizes at the last minute that, like, no, wait, I really do love my dad, even though I told him I was going to kill him and shot at
Right,
him and
so
a bunch of other
I
stuff,
think that
you
the
know.
context that you just gave of how it was meant to be in the book was kind of helpful of F was still trying to save his son. As angry as they
Right,
were, as much as he couldn't trust him, of like, he still doesn't want his son to be a vampire. Like, he's still the dad.
right.
And he had before he'd completely lost it, he had said things, "I wish I could have spared this for you," but then he, like, does one of the flips of the detonator, and then he loses his ability to control himself. And so there's only just the one little button that Zach has to push, and he knows it because he's seen this before.
Right.
But
It's
the
all
importance
coming
of
back to me. Hmm.
yeah, like, Zach's journey of, like, everything has gone wrong. All of his parents are dead, or they are at least bad guys. All of his friends are dead because he keeps setting them vampires on them when he loses fit. Like, everything is bad, no matter who I mean, like, some of his best moments were still with his parents, right? So everything that he's been with the
But
master has still been depressing.
I'll give you that particular line, but it's also addressed several times, that part, like, even with F, like when F calls him out for betraying him and, is gonna leave him and all of this stuff, Zach flies into a rage again, that it's like mom's still there, that the master has her, like, we're all part of it, we're all together, blah blah blah. And so, like, if Zach truly believes that, right, when F gets turned, like, his parents are still there. They haven't died. They're just fighting evil in another dimension, or whatever craziness this kid is teaching him. But yeah, I mean, I guess at the end, maybe he had that little epiphany of like, well, the only glimmer of hope I ever had left is dead now, and so might as well push the button.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's no Darth Vader redemption, that's for sure. Like, it's no, like, oh man, I've been a bad guy this whole time, but I've been a competent bad guy, and then, you just got through to that little glimmer of hope. It's just like, it's almost still like an emo thing where it's like, well, we
Yeah.
all might as well die. So, but
Yeah. But, that's the best ending we could have gotten for those 2. It's
I
like they needed to die.
importantly, yeah, importantly, Zach did get nuked, which is justice, which is why I shared that kid when I was done.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. So yeah, I not very often do I think, a child or a character, needs to be nuked in the face, but he's on the short list. So, and
Mhm.
mostly, again, I feel like a lot of that's just contrived. Like, his turn and redemption don't entirely feel earned, right? Like, I understand being mad at your mom, and maybe you could make the argument that it's like, well, all I know is that something bad's going to happen when I push the button, but I don't have enough brain matter to really contemplate out the decisions, or I really just don't even care right now. I just want something bad to happen. But like, pushing that button would not have hurt F directly.
Mhm.
It was only ever going to hurt somebody else. And so, like, that's like shooting randomly down the street and hitting your neighbor. Is like, there was no situation where that was going to do anything to your dad other than show him how mad you were. If it was party balloons or a cannon or conventional explosives or a nuke, is kind of irrelevant. There was no situation where pushing that button was going to hurt your dad. And that's part of why I feel like it's just like total shock and contrivance, a little bit.
Mhm.
And at least the final nuke, we all understand the thing there, and maybe Zach doesn't care if New York City's going to make it or not at that point, but like, why he pushes the button then again, like, at least he understands what's going to happen this time, presumably. But like, but why watching his dad get turned suddenly was the bridge too far. Like, he's seen his mom eat a kid, they kill, like, he basically had the serving girl killed, he killed the dad, like, just all of this stuff. Now why is it like seeing his dad get turned that brought him back around, if that's what it was? I don't know.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I think what they were going for was that was his last hope, his last family, the last thing that was keeping him going in a way he didn't understand. Whether they
Sure.
pulled it off convincingly, it didn't. Waffles, like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, that and, like, we also kinda hopped over something that was really important for, like, an episode, and it got everybody on track, but never fully felt delivered on, I think, which is the Ouroboros part
Mm,
where, like, Satrakian goes half crazy, which, mind you, we fucking skipped over that
I
too.
know, yeah,
His
yeah.
showdown with Icorst was wonderful all the
Oh
way
my god.
around, and that was about as good as that could have gone, as far as for my expectations and everything. But he basically goes half crazy and, like, starts tearing pages out of the Lumen because it doesn't fucking matter because they're all wrong anyway, presumably, but also somehow, like, it means that, like, well, we're the apocalypse that you earned along the way or whatever. Like,
Yeah, I think it
the
was, like,
apocalypse is magic because it's like even the master can't do it without friends. Is what I'm trying to get at.
the
So
power of
you need to take
friendship,
out his
but inverted or
human.
in, like, a
Yeah.
condemnation of capitalism or something, of, like, people's greed
Well,
was
yeah.
meaning that, like,
It
I
just
guess.
human vices, right? So it's like you need to go after his helpers, which is why they went after Desai, right? And why that was
Mhm.
important. Is because Desai is like the chief human collaborator at this point, at least in New York City.
Yeah.
Um, and then that gets Icorst to come out and play as well. And Icorst straight up goes after Satrakian and catches him, but to I'm not giving this its due, so I'm streamlining it quite a lot. But it's like, so F shows up, and part of the miracle of F showing up is that he's got
He's a doctor.
he's got like the heart medication, but it's blood thinners. And so it's going to work just like the rat poison did to kill all of those vampires. But I need you not to overdose on this because then you'll die, because that would be bad. But this is how it would affect a Strigoi. And so then Icor shows up and kills Alex, which is tragic, and then kills Gus's cousin, which is tragic for Gus. And then he's got Cream there, as his semi-zombied, whatever. And so he's chasing Gus and his cousin and all of this other stuff. And then he actually bites Satrakian, which I had totally forgotten about between one episode and the next, that because he bit him, like the worms are there, right? And so when everybody shows up, it's like, oh shit, even though Satrakian won, but he wins because he's old and he's gotten his ass kicked, and they're waiting for Dutch and F to get back with a dose of the white to get Satrakian back on the horse. But Satrakian's like, oh yeah, I took all this rat poison, so drink, bitch, you know. And then you get the final, like, my sword sings with silver is his little prayer,
Mhm.
apparently, and cuts off Icor's head, and it's wonderful.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, as far
I
as
mean,
how he was going out and stuff, like, it was always going
very
to be a,
fitting.
a duel. It was always going to be him and Icorst or him and the master, right? And I honestly kind of expected it earlier, like way back in season one, in the sense that it's like, I mean, this dude we find out is 90 years old. Like, how is he keeping going? But that's where they came up with the contrivance of the white, at least to address it, is that alchemists hundreds of years ago came up with this
I did
way to
like the
make
line
the
of, like,
white.
how many times did they get it wrong before they got it right?
Right. And it addresses my complaint when they had that right, that Satrakian just happens to have this knowledge, and it's like,
Mhm.
exactly how? That would have taken decades of research, like in a modern setting, let
Yeah.
alone, whatever else. So yeah, I do love that it was addressed, even though it doesn't necessarily further the story, but at least that does show you the competence of like the writers and the characters and stuff like that. And just be like at the end of it, F is like, I followed the recipe. If they say the recipe makes donuts, then we got donuts. But F is like, this is not science, right? Like, not really, like, because I wouldn't just give this to the old man if we had another choice. I would test this on somebody we don't care about first, like, so,
Yeah.
but, but yeah. And I guess actually, even thinking about it with F potentially, like, unless that shopping list is somewhere, like, that recipe is now lost to space and time. So because Satrakian knew it, and at least had the documentation. F had it, haven't seen it since then. F got nuked. So if he
It
had
was
it on his
probably in his
person,
pocket, and therefore it's
yeah,
just gone. Yeah.
poor Fett, he's just gonna have to live a normal life with a girl that can't commit. So that's what his prize is. So, but
Yep. But, yeah, the people who live, it's Gus going around being a rescuer, and Dutch is working at an
yeah,
IT company,
right,
and Fett is trying to kill rats again. He's so happy, and they said that
right.
uh, there's, like, 3 Strigoi kept in a CDC lab somewhere right next to the smallpox. Like, "Guys, don't do that." Like, just
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, keep a vial of this stuff maybe, but not like ambulatory, you know.
yeah.
But I mean, they're zombies, and I mean, like the other thing for the world too is like if you want to play in this world, they did a good job of leaving extra hooks because there's at least the three, ancients that are chumming around in Europe still, and potentially theoretically like they said there were seven, but it's like I was still unclear about what happened with the Egyptian guy because he's just insane and buried somewhere. And so was he an eighth or was he one of the three European ones, like I don't know, but
Mm, I don't remember.
so
I might not have paid
yeah.
attention enough to keep that track down, but yeah. Oh, and Roman stole all of the money and became the new real estate empire.
Right, yeah, that was funny. I forgot. Yeah, he makes it in that little throwaway and it's just like,
Yeah,
okay,
because
sure.
Gus and his guy were like, "We're stealing all of the silver, not because of
The
money, but
silver.
because silver is important."
Right.
And
Because
it
he's a paladin now, as you said.
yeah,
So, yeah.
and Roman was going like, you're just
Yeah.
gonna steal all that shit? Like, this isn't the plan. This isn't what Quinlan said." It's like, "Nope, it is
Yeah.
silver." And so Roman just was able to he went back to the vault, and he got all the other shit that he wanted, and now I've got the money, and fuck you, New York.
And that reminds me of another detail that I don't think is addressed, but it's shown on screen, is that the elevator that they trapped the master in was lined with silver plates.
Oh, yeah,
Did you
yeah,
catch
they
that? Yeah.
yes, they did.
Like, I don't think they say anything about it, but when the master slams into it, he sizzles, and I'm like, "What's up with that?" And then I see the silver plating, and I'm like, "Oh, shit, okay, fine." Because it kinda does become a minor plot point for Gus that it's like, they've got all these silver bars in the van, so they can't leave the van because that's all the fucking silver, you know?
Mhm.
So they had to double back and everything, but yeah, like, it was kind of a funny moment because yeah, like, Roman, who is presenting as a paladin because he's on duty or whatever, like, he's at least not, white knighting here a little bit. He draws down on Gus and this other gangster guy that I don't remember his name, and they're like, "Bro, silver. This is weapons, not
Yeah.
gold."
And even
So
when Gus and Roman have to
yeah,
meet, like, because they can't do a scene of introducing them, so Gus is like, "I'm with Fett." Like, "No, you're not. I've never seen you before." It's like he calls them munchers. Like,
right.
alright, that's the code word.
Yeah, that's close enough. It took like two or three things, but yeah, that was the one where it's like he started to put his gun down and whatever. But yeah, like, you know, I'm that one was at least a minor contrivance. I was like,
Yeah.
if I was you and I was told, "Hey, I need you to go meet this guy, but he is guarding a nuclear weapon with fully automatic weapons,"
Mhm.
you make noise. Like I'm going to tell you, like I walk around people who are unarmed in a dojo, and you scuff your feet and cough and make sure that people know where you are, just out of politeness as much as anything. And granted, when they drove down there to meet him, they were like squealing the tires and shit, so he knew somebody was coming. But like, you stop 200 plus feet away with your hands up and say, "Hey, yo, Fett told us to come meet you," and that's shit that could be done at a distance. You didn't
Yeah.
need to be within point blank, firearm range to have that conversation.
Yeah.
so
No, that just makes it easier
so
for the
yeah,
filming crew. But,
maybe, yeah.
uh, I like
uh,
I feel so overall, I still feel very conflicted about this show because, like, the competence is good, the dialogue is good, the
right.
the general, like, progression of things is good, but there's a lot of filler. It could be condensed, and it would be better for it. Uh, Nobody needs girlfriends.
Humans
And
humans gonna human, and during the apocalypse,
but there's a that makes sense. That's
Yeah.
not in itself in the problem. I just remember a line from, Stephen King's On Writing when he had given his wife something to read of, like, this, and she was like, "This whole section of what the guy's been doing in the intervening months is boring." It's like, "But it's really important to the plot." It's like, "Yeah, but do you have to bore me while you do it?"
Right.
That's
Yeah.
it. It's just like they felt
Reading
so
is
much like filler.
reading, especially fiction, is meant to be entertaining, you know?
Yeah,
So yeah.
and
I
I
mean, overall, I agree with you. I
yeah,
also agree with the ratings on IMDb. At the end of the day, a solid 7, 7.5 out of 10. I think it was pretty good, you know, and if you're
mhm,
really into vampires and you want a modern take on the story and everything, then go nuts, right? Some episodes were better, some episodes were worse. You know, I'm not necessarily hungry for more. There's just a little bit of a taste where it's like if they had resurrected a story of them dealing with something in Europe, or you know, if Quinlan had made it, or you know, somebody digs up the Egyptian guy or something like that, right? Because like the ancients have some kind of status quo where like the master was the problem, he was the upstart, he was the disruptor, to use the modern parlance, right, and everything like that. And so he got taken out, so the world can return to peace ish, you know. But
mhm,
then you know they're still rebuilding in a nuclear wasteland, right? You know,
yeah.
so
Geopolitical landscape is still fucked, and
right,
yeah, like, I'm not sorry to have done all of this, but I am glad that the show is done, and, like, it can just be something that I have watched and
sure,
enjoyed, but it's not my homework anymore.
yeah, yeah. I got to the point where I was looking forward to the next episode, but again, they weren't all bangers, you know. So yeah. And I'm sad that we don't get more Quinlan, because honestly, at first he was kind of a contrivance, him and the Sun
Yeah,
Hunters and everything, but they really did kind of flesh him out as a character, even though he's clearly a DMPC where it's like, I'm overpowered and don't like you all and whatever. But towards the end, especially, I mean, he got some kick-ass scenes and they used him appropriately, and he got a sense of humor like twice, you know, so you know he winds up being one of my favorites, and then obviously Fett. But it's like, you know, I don't fully love Quinlan because of the DMPC-ness, because a lot of his stuff is like, you know, he's just overpowered. And then I don't fully love Fett because luck is a superpower. And so it's just like, you know, but they were two of my favorites. I didn't hate F. You really hated F, but
I
you
didn't
know,
hate F until stupid decisions, and the stupid
sure.
decisions was always around his family, and even
Yeah.
when there's understandable, there's still, like, "Don't do that, go ask for Satrakian for help instead," like, "Go find an
Some of
adult."
you guys some of you guys could avoid being, you know, these dumb plot points if you just ask yourself hard questions like, if my teenage son nuked New York City, what's an
Mhm.
appropriate punishment? You know, like F never
Yeah.
asked himself these tough questions, and that's why Zach nuked New York City. So I got to go have a conversation with my 10-year-old and be like, you will be grounded forever if you nuke even the tiniest village. Like, just say no. So
Mhm.
friends don't let friends nuke and drive. So unless it's vampires, then go nuts, you know? So
Yeah, but as long as it's down in the 800 feet below ground, and somehow NORAD will never know this.
well, I doubt there was very much NORAD, but it did cross my mind too, because it's like, yeah, I mean, the government's probably largely intact unless, you know, they got
Unless they're not.
I mean, obviously they had somebody in DC somewhere, but was it a Strigoi? Because, you know, like probably the president and the vice president, the joint chiefs of staff, most of Congress, a chunk of Congress anyway, are in a bunker somewhere, you know. Several different bunkers probably, but still, you know, like um or you know they never really address it actually in this entire season. I'm not sure if they addressed DC one time, and so it's like, did
Yeah,
DC
don't
get
think
nuked,
so.
you know? So because New York didn't, and you know plenty of reason to nuke New York. And like they really never address where the bombs fell either, you know,
Yeah.
just that they weren't sure if it was the Russians who did it, but also here's 8 other countries that had nukes, so it could have been any of them. And it's like, yeah, but they weren't shooting at us, you know, like maybe, you know, India and Pakistan used it as an excuse to go after each other, you know, or something like that.
Mm.
But yeah. So It's also kinda interesting because the shows the like, I think these episodes took place in, like, 2016, and so it's, like, a decade ago, and so, like, the geopolitical landscape is different, but not so different, that,
Mhm.
there aren't some wild similarities there with, certain things, and I mean, even the project, that was one thing that was kind of fun to read on, like, the Tunnel 4 and stuff like that, is,
Yeah.
like, they started in the '70s, and even still, for this show, they were like, "Yeah, it's still got decades to go," and the trivia
Might be
was
finished
saying, like,
in
that
2025. Ooh. Or
2032, I think, is the latest, or something like that, but
okay.
it's
Oh,
supposedly the biggest mega project engineering project in the like, in the Western world, so, just
in,
craziness.
season 3? Yeah, like, something when they're talking about, "Oh, there was an eclipse that just happened, and we can get an eclipse again," whatever that why because of the prophecy or something, and Fez like, "I looked it up, the next one happens in 2020." It's just
Right,
so funny to see those dates have passed.
right, yeah. Well, yeah, and I mean, we're a quarter century through now, but the whole, like, in the year 2000, the distant year 2000, and go watch
Yeah.
all of your movies from the '80s where it's like the Terminators are going to attack in August 20 or 2006 or whatever, or 1999 or whatever. And it's like, oh, yeah, we were really bad about predicting the future for stuff like that. And, yeah. So like, we're getting real close to, like, we've already passed some, but we're starting to get into, like, Star Trek dates where it's like Star Trek was set hundreds of years into the future, and we're still like, "Oh, we were supposed to be doing some of these things by now," you know? So, like, another 100 years, and we're supposed to be running around in the Enterprise, like the NX-01. So, I mean,
You know,
I probably won't see it, but yeah, I mean, I don't
you
expect,
might get an
we'll be that
installation
far
on the
along.
moon, maybe.
Right. Again, technologically speaking, we could do a lot of these things. The warp drive, that's a contrivance for the show and everything like that. So, unless some pretty crazy things in physics and science happen, we're not just sitting on a warp drive, but we do have some promising fusion engine technology that we could be on Mars right now if there was a political will and, funding for it and everything like that. Like, we have the technology for it. We just aren't making those decisions because, you know, if I continue the sentence, we'll be talking about politics, but, you know, so
Yeah, we're
so
over
yeah,
time anyway.
true story. So,
Yeah, but it's done. We've watched The Strain. We've watched a whole show for homework.
4 seasons. Yep, it was pretty good.
Right. Yeah, and next week we'll be doing more crazy Dresden things. We'll find out.